Welcome to another episode of the Future Proof You podcast. Go F yourself. I am your co-host, Aaron McKelkey, joined by John Lovig.
Hello.
And Dan Yu.
Good afternoon.
Our resident recruiting experts. And our topic today is something you've probably heard a lot about. Going on a year or two, the narrative has been entry-level roles are cooked. You're not going to get hired. There's no new blood coming in. AI is replacing all of the college graduate entry-level work across companies globally. And we're here to push back on that narrative. And John actually has a source, but also just their pulse on the recruiting world in spring of 2026. This was recorded right in the middle of Q2. So, John, let's start with the narrative we've all heard. No one's hiring entry level, especially tech, developer, people that were told 4 years ago, if you get a computer science degree, if you become a developer, you'll have a six-figure job before you ever graduate. And now they're working in fast food. Have you seen that? Has there been some legitimate instances of that happening in your recruiting experience?
There has been a shift. Yeah, it's not completely out of thin air. There are a lot of companies pulled back on graduate hiring in the past year or so. I would say the cause of that is hard to tell. A lot of people are saying it's AI and AI is disrupting hiring. I don't know if that's 100% what's going on. I think it's partially to blame. But we're seeing a shift in that. So the change now is that the class of 2026 has better prospects, I think, than their previous class, both with unemployment rates among 20 to 24-year-olds dropping dramatically from where they used to be, as well as a lot of major companies that hire that used to hire entry-level grads are hiring more. So McKinsey, IBM are all saying they're looking to bring on more people than they had in the past. So good sign, I think, for people who've spent the money and time invested in getting an education.
Yeah, Dan, what about you and your recruiting experience and the people you've worked with? Have you seen college graduates and entry-level roles be difficult to come by the last 18 months to 2 years?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a trend, right, that people that are recent grads and also experienced folks that are using AI, right, to really spam out a bunch of applications and trying to use AI to customize their approach as much as possible. And I think that given the lack of demand for talent, it's right now a pretty difficult time. As John said, the a trend is reversing, right? And so I think there's an opportunity for the young graduates. I will always lean towards having live interactions, right? And so networking is going to be a much more effective way to get information from potential hiring firms. So that's kind of the opposite, I think, of what a lot of young graduates are doing, and maybe they're being told to do it that way. So I would suggest to everybody that you really want to get out there and network as much as possible.
Yeah, that was referenced in the Wall Street Journal article as well. Is it's not the students who are throwing applications blindly out there. It's the ones that are being savvy about networking early. The other thing another trend that they noticed, which if you're graduating this year, it's probably too late, but those who haven't graduated yet, the students who worked while they were in school were more likely to get a job than those who didn't. And it did not say, as far as I can tell, that it had to be within a particular field. So I think showing work ethic, showing that you're not just going to school, but that you can handle more than one thing at a time and really do that, I think is important.
Yeah, I think it's really important that that college students get a good internship And if they can handle the workload, then get even like a part-time, a few hours a week, kind of a gig during the school year, so that they can show this progression and this continuity of being in an office environment and learning how to deal with people and learning how to interact in a professional setting. I think those skills will definitely show out for sure.
Okay, I'm going to throw out some hypotheses, and I didn't tell you guys this ahead of time. And then I just want your response to these ideas or claims. We'll start with John. Part of the reason why entry level jobs have been hard to come by is because college graduates are less prepared for the realities of work than ever before.
It does feel that way. I've seen the TikToks of Gen Zers crashing out at the idea of working 40 hours a week for someone else and not having their own free time. I don't know how many people feel that way, but no, I don't think college ever really prepared people for the workforce. I think it's a myth to think that it ever did. I think the workforce now expects more out of people coming out of college versus investing time in training. And, you know, um, someone else who reposted the same article I did commented, we're losing a lot of middle managers in the workforce, and those are the people who would train entry level folks. And so, the burden of kind of learning on the job is likely going to fall on entry level hires.
Yeah. Dan, what's your take on that? Are college graduates less prepared for the realities of work than ever before, or has that always been a thing and that's just an excuse?
Yeah, I think it's an excuse. I think there's a real opportunity to just understand that nobody expects you to be perfect, right? And so if you don't have that expectation, and I think there's a lot of cultural hurdles that the younger graduates have to overcome. You got to be perfect, got to get an A. An A means success. In many ways, in the real world, right, in the workforce, B plus and fast is the way to go. If you can execute and if you can get out there, to do the job quickly, I think that's going to be more effective, because you have to learn and pivot anyway. It could be midstream or it can be after you deliver something. Oh, you got to take it back and then learn. It's a process that is present in technology companies, but in many other roles as well.
Yeah, but
Okay.
the way I think about it too is in college you learn professional-ish language, right? You learn about I learned about diversity and inclusion, best practices in HR, all this kind of stuff. What I didn't learn was, hey John, can I have that on my desk ASAP? Right? You don't learn the work lingo or the way that information gets translated into the way you do your job. I always remember when I first graduated being very frustrated that there was some really easy low hanging fruit of best practices that could be implemented that would improve the workforce, and being the newbie and not being able to change that. So it's an interesting thing. And again, colleges don't feel that their job is to prepare people for the workforce. It's to create intellectuals and people who are disciplined in an area. Maybe they need to do a better job of connecting the two. I think so personally, but that's kind of where it is.
Okay.
Yeah, I think some colleges will do a better job at that. The ones that like Northeastern, right? I think it's a good example because they require that you do a couple things, and one of them is have a full time internship while you're in undergrad. They also require, and some schools require this, that you have to travel abroad. It's being able to see, what it's like in a different country. Just the opportunity to be in a place that's not your home is a good is a good experience. And then some of them actually require that your internship should be overseas. So you not only get that work experience, but you get it from a different cultural perspective.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, next one. Dan gets the first crack at this. Companies have been slow to hire entry level roles due to uncertainty around AI, not AI itself. In other words, AI didn't replace the work. The company's just like, I don't know if we should or shouldn't hire because this AI thing is looming out here. Valid or not valid, Dan?
I think valid. I'll go with valid. So I think the precursor to that is that companies, whenever there's some kind of a shift, right, a big shift in how they do things or in the marketplace or in their industry, companies will overfire, right? Because they don't know, they have uncertainty. So they'll overfire. They'll actually fire probably a little bit too many people. Maybe they'll do it in different forms, like a virtual, like a forced retirement, right? Or they'll make everybody come into the office, right? And so you have that layer of people that gets let go first. So it's a precursor, and then after that, they'll try to assess what talent do they need, and then so, I think it's a lagging kind of kind of process, and so with with any uncertainty, it's going to be there. And unfortunately, AI, or fortunately or unfortunately, AI is causing that uncertainty across industries. So the uncertainty may not be focused on, let's say, financial services, right, in one area.
Yeah, that's solid. And I've seen that with software subscriptions where people do this funny thing where they go cancel it, and if nobody complains, you never needed it. You're just saying do that with headcount, essentially. Like, oh, can we function without them? I don't know. Cut a whole swath of them and see if the wheels fall off, and if not, we save money. John, how about you? Do you think that's a legitimate claim that companies have been slow to hire entry level roles due to uncertainty around AI rather than AI replacing it productivity wise?
I agree. I think it is around kind of evaluating what AI's place in the workforce is.
Yeah. Okay. Last one. And this is clip worthy. So we got to make it good. Everybody in college or parent of a college student feels the sense of uncertainty. The world has shifted since I went to school or since I sent my son or daughter to school. What's your single piece of advice for somebody worried about their career opportunities coming out of college? If they're currently in a college program or the parent of their child is in a college program, John, what's your single piece of advice for them?
I think, build connections now, right? One thing that's really powerful is your classmates are people you should be networking with. You should stay in touch with long term, because if they're in the field that you want to be in and you need to make a move, they might be in a company that can help you, right? And so stay in touch with that network and start networking with professionals outside. Look at your alumni groups, look at people who've graduated from your program. If you don't have a mentor yet who's graduated from your program and is doing what you're looking to do, get one.
Yeah. Dan, what's your single piece of advice for college grads or parents of college grads who are uncertain about their career potential?
I agree with John that building the network is probably the best thing anybody can do. So build your network now and do it for the long term. And what does that mean? That means that you're not networking just to get a transaction. Oh, just give me a job. Right? You want to build that network for the long term, so you'll never know when that network will bear fruit. It will come 5 6 months down the line, a year down the line, 2 years down the line. I know of somebody that networked with a former client that ended up giving them a job 20 years later. Now that's really long tail, but you're always networking for the long game.
What's the phrase? Your network is your net worth.
That's right, right. And the other one is network as if you don't have a job when you have a job, so that when you need a job, it won't seem transactional.
And hearing Dan say that will not compel you to follow his advice, but rather losing your job, having not networked, and feeling the pressure of, oh, I wish I would have, will ensure in the future you will not repeat that mistake. It's kind of like telling your 4-year-old not to touch the hot stove. My words won't teach you. The pain of experiencing it yourself will be your best teacher. I'm going to answer my own advice. Many of you have been lied to about getting, your real job, and you've had this idea that there's a conveyor belt starting with kindergarten, and if you hop on and do all the things to get the diploma, at the end of the conveyor belt will be a good job waiting for you, and then you can hop off the conveyor belt that is education. That has never been less reliable. I'm not saying no one has that. I'm saying the percent of people who experience that to be true is getting smaller every day. And my single piece of advice is, one, acknowledge that that's the truth. And two, you have to bring something other than the diploma to find the job. And no one is going to do it for you or bestow it upon you. You're going to have to figure it out for yourself. Networking is a huge part of that. And the more human, in-person networking you can do, the better. But I also think having a project that you apply all of these things outside of your formal education experience, so that you have more than just a portfolio of mock stuff you did in a course, has never been more valuable, because so few people leave their college education with that. I'll give you an example. If you're a marketer and you have a YouTube channel or a TikTok account or a blog or something that you've actually done this work, it doesn't matter what it's about. You have real learnings and experiences that are more valuable than most people's diplomas. So find a passion project, a side hustle, an internship. I like to call it a permissionless project. Like, go build something for somebody else just to say, hey, if I was in charge of your website, this is what I would do with your landing page. Because that's going to get you a job more than somebody who just has a diploma and says, hey, I'm ready to hop off the conveyor belt. Where's my career waiting for me? Because it's not there.
Yeah, building a portfolio of mini projects and experiences can demonstrate that you're capable of doing that thing. And also, along with that, is having a recommendation, right, from the client that you helped out. So having a named case study, even better, right? So a real life example is always going to be really effective.
Yeah, and I know John agrees with this because we have a shared psych background and he has some higher ed experience. But if you leave your degree program with theoretical knowledge, that is no longer valuable. Like, people don't need abstract academic ideas of how to do things. They want someone who has actually done it, because AI can give you all the abstract ideas in the world. Yeah. Those are pretty much free and instant now. So if that's all you leave your college program with, you're going to have a bad time.
Yeah, that's true. And your degree only matters for your first job or your first 2 years out of school. Anything after that, it really doesn't matter anymore.
I live that life every day now. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the big thing, the message here is there is hope and there is a path. It's just maybe it's been obscure or it's been tough for the last year or two. But thanks to John's post on LinkedIn, that some of these companies like IBM are starting to look specifically for entry-level hires. Maybe that trend is shifting and people are realizing AI can't just replace all of these people, middle managers, entry-level roles. Whatever the hype was, maybe has not turned out to bear fruit for these companies. So that doesn't mean college is worthless, but I do think it's never been less important. That's how I phrase it. And my 9-year-old tells me all the time, I'm not going to college. College doesn't matter. And I haven't been able to say, like, yes, you have to. I think when I was a millennial growing up, we would shiver at the thought of not encouraging your child to go to college because that was just the world we lived in. The conveyor belt, I think, was largely true, especially if you got the right degree. If you were, STEM, engineering, developing computer science stuff, like people were throwing money at you to hire you. But now you gotta bring something else to the table. So if you want something else, that's what Future Proof You is here to do. That's what our LinkedIn page is all about. If you don't follow Dan and John, their profiles will be in the show notes. We also have our website, futureproof-you.com, where you can find live courses on things like getting your LinkedIn profile set up or acing an interview, especially if it's a Zoom online interview. We also have asynchronous versions of those, so you can download those and watch and go through the note guides on your own. I have been your co-host, Aaron McKelkey. John and Dan, thank you guys for joining this episode of Future Proof You's podcast. Go F yourself. Have a great one.
Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, John. Good seeing you guys.